Croeso! It's Friday, never you mind what time it is, and it's Dragonheart. There's talk now of fans being allowed back in the racecourse by the end of the season. You'll find a lot of things are different now. There's electronic advertising boards around the sides of the pitch, a documentary crew wandering around filming stuff, and now Luke Young scores goals from inside the penalty area as well. Young got 2 penalties against Solihull Moors. The first one was a simple affair, but the keeper really should have had the second one. He went down and seemed to be in complete control, and then in just a glimpse of a second, it was over. Just like Sam Rickett's managerial career. Later we'll hear from Mark Wilson, who had a dramatic debut for Wrexham when Gareth Owen was forced to go into goal, and we believe that Jay Harris would be our go-to keeper now in an emergency. If Harris does get to put on the gloves, he'll be the shortest goalkeeper in professional football since Kilmarnock used Jeanette Cranky in the Tunnock's Caramel Wafer Scottish Challenge Cup. He could be in that next year. We'll be chatting about the social media boycott, looking back at the Solihull game and the Maidenhead draw. We'll talk about your suggestions of the person you'd most like to have a pint with and talk about Wrexham. And we'll hear from Mark Wilson too. So, sit back, listen keenly while we play for you a brand new football biscuit. It's Dragonheart.
I'm Fiacre Kelleher and you're listening to Dragonheart radio show.
Hello, welcome to Dragonheart. I'm Mark Griffiths, and this is the third time I've been Mark Griffiths because twice we've recorded the start of this and I didn't press record. The second time, there's not much excuse for that, is there really? So it's a bit like letting in 2 Luke Young penalties back to back within 4 minutes of each other. Learn your lesson, Ryan Boot. Anyway, I am Mark Griffiths. There's Jay Long. Good to have you back.
Oh, yes, I'm very glad to be back, mate. I had a week off last week, scheduling circumstances. Yeah. So, really happy to be back.
Yeah, a different excuse in each of the 3 takes. Shocking, isn't it? You can't get this far these days. We've got a good show ahead of us. We've got a review of the bank holiday weekend action, 2 games we played then. We will be looking at your suggestions. Which Wrexham figure would you like to have a pint with? And we've got an interview with Mark Wilson, classy Man United player who played on loan for us in the 1990s. And that interview went down very well when it was used at half-time in the live stream against Solihull. Well, this is the full interview that you'll be able to hear today. But first, let's get on with the serious stuff, because we didn't publicise Dragonheart last week because we, as a football club, were taking part in the social media boycott. And it was absolutely, I think, an admirable movement by most football teams, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, 100%. It was nice to see the football players and the football teams getting involved and saying to these social media companies, Facebook and Twitter, saying, listen, we've had enough of this abuse now. It's time to stop.
Exactly. It's despicable, isn't it? I mean, it's despicable behaviour by the people who are posting that abuse, but there have to be rules in place to stop them. And the things I can't quite get my head around is I've uploaded videos onto YouTube, for example, at Boreham Wood, once on the sides of the pitch. And while it's uploading, it gets rejected by YouTube because the Boreham Wood players in the changing room are playing music and we're on the sides of the pitch and we didn't think, and that background music has leaked through in. So before the video's even finished uploading, YouTube have got powerful software that can detect what music is on it and whether it's copyrighted, which is remarkable. Last week I uploaded a few old podcasts that I realised weren't on the feed, and one of them got rejected again before the processing finished on SoundCloud. So that software is out there, and yet they don't have any energy or desire to use it against hateful behaviour and abuse. And the way I look at it, if you think about it, every school in Britain will have an IT system which filters out an acceptable language. If every school can have it, I don't fully understand why social media companies haven't got a much better version. And if we're going to say, all they do is they'll not used a direct abusive word, well, there's plenty of software out there which will check your grammar for you. In fact, anyone who's listening on a laptop or on a phone has got it right there in front of them. Microsoft Word, all the word processors have grammar checks and can make a sensible guess as to what you're saying. And we're really saying that the companies that spend so much money on software that can pick up a song before the video's even finished uploading can't spend the money to work out what might be abusive. I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't think so.
It must be some sort of thing of saving money, basically. And these people have got so much money that every little penny counts to them, doesn't it? So why do this when they can just ban you? And it doesn't work, does it? Because these trolls and these idiots keep on making accounts and accounts and accounts, don't they, to abuse people. And, you know, Wrexham as a football club and our fans, we're not oh, what's the word? Sorry. We're not uniquely we're not innocent in this, you know. You look what Dean Keats has said this week, for example.
Yeah. It was good that he's spoke out there, wasn't it? I think because, you know, whether you like him as a manager or not, abuse like that, I mean, people have got to get a grip and take a step back and look at their lives and what's actually important before you start doing things like that. It was really good he spoke up, wasn't it?
Oh, exactly. And you know, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying you can't criticize Keats. It's more than fine to criticize Keats as a manager. That's fine if that's your opinions. That's just football, and we all have our own opinions, don't we? And that's what makes the game great. But then there's abuse and there's being nasty, isn't there? And it's just, you know, this is a guy's job. This is his livelihood. You know, when his children are involved, it's absolutely despicable.
Absolutely. Yeah, getting after his kids, his family, wishing ill on him. It's a game, you know, it's a game we love and we're passionate about it. But that sort of thing, that's not passion. That's just sick and twisted, frankly. I think that's one of the reasons. I mean, anyone who's listened to anything I said knows I respect Keats, and I think he's the man to do the job for us. So I've never hidden that. I think that maybe I've sometimes gone a bit further than I had to in saying that, perhaps because I was seeing the level of aggression. And I completely agree with you. I think Keats is right for the job, but I absolutely respect anyone's opinion that he isn't, as long as it's based on fact and not just hate. And that's the point, isn't it? I think the post-match YouTube live streams are a good example of that. I think it's extremely healthy to have a debate with anyone, whatever their opinion on it, as long as it's a sensible discussion. And that often happens on those live streams, which I love doing, because people come on, they disagree, and we talk about it. And we both agree to disagree and respect the other's opinions. That's fantastic. But this sort of crazy abuse, I mean, you just don't want people like that anywhere near our football club, do you, to be frank?
No. 100%, and they can be completely anonymous as well, can't they? Complete incognito, which is the worst thing. So I could bet you some money that majority of those people saying those things, well, 99.99% of them wouldn't do those things, for one, and two, also wouldn't go and say it to his face.
Oh yeah, exactly. I wouldn't like their chances if I said to Dean Keats to his face, to be honest with you. He can stand up for himself. There's plenty of midfielders around the country who could vouch for that throughout his career. Exactly.
And it's just how do we go on from here, do you think? How, instead of just adding an algorithm, because people still think and want to do, people find ways to abuse these players and foot managers and what have you. How do we try and stamp it out completely then in the future?
I mean, for me, I think the example of the Super League is a good one. Legislation. The thing that ultimately scared off the Super League clubs was that the governments said they'd legislate to make this not happen. And there are forms of legislation that could make it not happen. And it's all about money, whether it's the Super League or whether it's about the social media companies. I know that, you know, the governments will be nervous of saying to social media companies, we're not going to play ball, we're going to pass legislation that will force you to bring in checks and balances. I know they'd be nervous of doing that, but the fact of the matter is, much as Twitter or Facebook might say, well, if you do that, then we will not be part of it. We'll just shut off in Britain and try to say that. The truth is, Britain's a huge social media market. They can't afford to take a hit of revenues by all of Britain not being covered by them. They're going to have to compromise. I think legislation is the answer. The problem, of course, is legislation can't be worldwide.
Yeah,
so
that is the problem.
That's the issue, isn't it? So you can have, we've got a football club that are trying to widen our fan base. Well, legislation in Britain may not help us in that completely.
But Twitter can put universal terms and agreements of, any person that gets found. And they probably do have these sort of things now, but, if you do it once, you get banned. And maybe some sort of way of, you can't make multiple accounts unless it's for a legitimate reason, and maybe Twitter look into that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. There's a lot more intelligent people who get paid to do this sort of thing who probably should have figured it out by now anyway.
I think you can certainly put things in place that are not going to end that sort of activity, but say a sort of universal social media passport or something like that, which is evidence of who you are, which means you have to justify, as you said, multiple accounts. So if you get banned, you are banned. That would be something people would find a way around. But I think that probably your casual racist or casual abuser probably won't. I think motivated people, like the sort of people who puts fake news out to twist current affairs, they'll find their way around it easily. But the sort of casual people who wish horrible things on Dean Keats's children, probably once they get banned, won't be able to work out a way around it. So maybe that would be a good start, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
it is complicated. 100%. The thing is, that worries me is there a desire to fix it from those companies? They'll jump, like I said, over the copyright issue because they don't want to upset big business like music publishing, but they won't jump necessarily to protect normal, decent people who just want to have a decent discourse, and that's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a shame. But my old thoughts in a nutshell: very happy it happened. I think it's shown a light on, especially on Wrexham, not so much in the wider world, because these big time managers and these big time players, they're going to get abuse. They've always had abuse. But it was good to hear that, Dean Keats coming out and saying these things. That I think it hit home for a lot of Wrexham fans, and maybe they appreciate a lot more the job he is actually doing as a manager. So, I think it was a good thing in total.
Absolutely. I just hope people appreciate he is a human being. You can't speak to people like that. It's just despicable to speak to people like that. Whether you like why he's doing the job or not is irrelevant. Decency is universal. So
100%.
Well, we've we'll talk about some more fun stuff, shall we? 4 points out of 6 over the weekend after this.
I'm John Ponticelli, and you're listening to the Dragonheart radio show.
Yeah, 2 games in 3 days. Always a bit of a test. We got a win against Solihull Moors at home and then a draw away to Maidenhead United. I mean, very pleased with the Saturday results. The Monday one was one of those weird ones I said in the sort of introduction to the match podcast. We should have lost and we should have won. But if you look at Solihull first, we had to dig in at the end, but it was a good performance.
Yeah, I think first half we were excellent. We were putting real pressure on them. We were playing nice attacking football. From my recollection of the game, maybe slightly different to everyone else because I was doing the camera work for BT. So to absorb any information on the game was quite hard. It was just watching the ball. So it's a completely different experience. But it was also quite a bizarre game for my recollection as well, because 3 penalties in one game is a bit of a crazy one, isn't it? And 2 of the penalties being actually completely identical was crazy. But yeah, it was a deserved win. But in the back of my head towards the end of the game, I was a bit like, please don't repeat a Dagenham again.
Yeah,
where they clawed 2 goals back, but we didn't. We stayed strong, happy with the result.
I seem to be the only person who didn't think of Dagenham at the end of that match. Not that I didn't think we could let an equaliser, but everybody afterwards said, "Oh, I bet you were talking about Dagenham there, weren't you?" And I thought, "Oh, yeah, Dagenham gave exactly the same, wasn't it?" Yeah. I thought the first hour we were great, but we should have put them to bed. And, my one little the way the game ended concerned me, but my bigger concern in a way was that we can dominate a side like that, play good football, make chances, but only score 2 penalties. We didn't get anything in open play, and that disappointed me a little, because we really should have done. We should have absolutely. I mean, we could have been 4 up at half time. But I'm glad we did that. It's better that we're playing like that, even if we're missing chances, than when we're finding it difficult to create anything, which has happened, of course, this season.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought our creativeness was there, just maybe not the final end product.
Yeah.
And that just happens in football at times. And the most important part at this point in the season, because we really are at the business end of the season now, is getting that 3 points. But my main criticism was towards the end of the game. Yeah. I didn't like how we were just lumping it away. Do you know what I mean? From my recollection is Leighton, when he had the ball, instead of maybe trying to keep possession, was just sort of lumping it, and I remember a few times it just ended up going straight back to their keeper, so they could reset and start playing again. I thought Solihull looked really dangerous towards the end of the game too. Credit to them.
I thought, yeah, they were. A few times this season, people have talked about Wrexham panicking and just hoofing it anywhere, and in some of the previous occasions, I've not really agreed. But this time I agree.
Yeah.
This time, I thought it wasn't necessary. We could have kept playing. There were a lot of just pounding the ball away. Sometimes when the strikers would come back to help defend, and there was nobody up there, and players had time on the edge of the box, and it was just a little bit of a panic, I think. And instead of just taking the ball down and looking around, smashing it away. I remember, and he's going to be a rarity. It's only a tiny criticism, but I'm going to say something about Luke Young that isn't positive, believe it or not, because there was one point where he did that. He got the ball on the edge of the box. He had a bit of space and a bit of time. And Luke Young, I think, is very good. And Keats talks about this, at keeping calm and playing the constructive pass in those sort of pressured positions. And if you look back at our goals this season, there are 3 or 4 that have started because instead of just getting rid of it, Young has been calm enough to take a touch and feed it to somebody and start a breakaway. And yeah, he was doing that. And he and Harris, I think, are our best players in those positions. And I thought, gosh, yeah, there really is a little bit of edginess here. I've got to be honest, until that scramble at 92nd minute and then the corner where Storer probably should have scored, I felt it was one of those games where they're camped in our half, but they're not making chances. I thought we defended it fairly well, even though we were panicking and booting it straight back to them. But yeah, having said that, those 2 incidents right back to back right at the end could easily have been an equaliser, and we'd have thrown away 2 points that we should have had in the bag by half time.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a Dagenham flashbacks, and I think the fact that they were just creating territory, I think probably just makes us as Wrexham fans just a little bit uneasy.
Oh yeah,
because you can just throw away points like that, and we were the dominant side, and at the end of the day, it is what it is. We've got the 3 points. Just forget about it now. What did you think about the debutant?
Did well, Cameron Green, didn't he?
Yeah,
he did nice on the ball, didn't he? Good, quick going forwards.
Yeah.
I mean, you were impressed by him, weren't you?
Yeah, I was impressed. Maybe because he's not used to adult football. Maybe because he's not used to the system we're playing in at the moment. But yeah, I think he could definitely be an asset for the future. And I like the way he conducted himself post game as well. You could tell he's a very intelligent lad. I was really impressed with him going forward, dribbling, and I think he's a really good backup for Jamie Record, because I think if Record gets injured, I'd rather him come in, because I think Jordan Davis is really good in the middle.
Yeah, I think that's the logic of bringing Green in. I think
that
Davis can settle in the middle of the pitch and start hurting teams like he's been doing lately.
Yeah.
I thought Green had problems with Adai, the winger. Generally, Adai was getting his crosses in. He wasn't making Green look stupid and dumping him on his backside, doing what Anthony Jeffrey did to Kevin Roberts 2 seasons ago. But every time he ran at him, he got the cross in. And so that area is something maybe Green needs to have a little look at. But he looks intelligent with his movements and uses the ball well. And I just loved right at the very start when he made that cute run where he faked to go outside, went inside, and Omotayo backheeled him in behind the defence. You thought, oh, this is a lad who's thinking on his feet here. I really like the look of that. So, yeah, I was really pleased with him. What about the penalty decisions then, Shay? Were they penalties? I'm not sure. But theirs was. But
first was, I think the first one was. The first one was the Reece Johnson one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you have to recap the second one for me because I can't quite remember it off the top of my head.
Beautiful ball by Jordan Davis to put Angus in one-on-one.
Yeah.
And then Angus cut across his man and went down. I've got to be honest. At the time,
he slipped, didn't he?
Yeah. At the time, I was utterly convinced that was a penalty, and I wasn't so sure about the whole Johnson one. I was certain I heard his foot hit his shin pad. It was a definite hard noise at the right point, but looking at it again, maybe not.
Yeah, the second one, he did look like he slipped. I thought the first one was definitely a penalty, to be fair. He cut him off. Didn't really make much contact with the ball.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think the first one was definitely a penalty. Maybe not so much the second one, but you take them, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I was thinking after the match, okay, we're a little lucky with that second penalty. Although I got to say, defending the referee here, record the moment I said that. The referees, it was one of those that really looked like a cast iron penalty. And you could understand the ref getting it wrong. I only started feeling suspicious when I started thinking, why are Solihull arguing so much? They didn't argue much about the first penalty. The second one, they were going nuts.
Yeah, they were going wild,
the lad who did it, who carried on moaning at Angus while they were waiting on the edge of the D for the penalty to be taken. And I was like, why? Why do you argue on something so obvious? But now I've seen the replay. All right, I get it. I think I can see why. But I mean, the way I look at it is, all right, we got a bit lucky there. But if referees make these mistakes in our favour, they certainly make them against us as well. We'd have 4 more points if we'd had better referees in the 2 Eastleigh games. Because the penalty that got them the equaliser at Eastleigh was an utter joke. And the penalty, in fact, there was a very similar instance in the Man City Paris Saint-Germain game, where it was a high boots to clear the ball in the 6-yard box, even off the line. There was no thought of a penalty, and there was no appeal for a penalty, like the Eastleigh one. And then in the game at home to Eastleigh, of course, remember we had Kelleher sent off when he didn't touch the man. And then we had records in the closing stages when it was 2-2 pulled back in the penalty area and the penalty wasn't given. So we should have 4 points more. So if we gain 2 of them back there last Saturday, good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think National League refereeing and officiating at times, it could be a bit like a roulette, can't it?
Yeah.
I think sometimes they just decide to make decisions when they want to. And one thing I have noticed about the officiating this year in general, it's a bit more of a general point rather than specific on the game, is, and maybe it's because it's closed doors, I find that the team that screams and makes the most noise usually gets the decision.
I think you're right. I think it brings home very clearly when you're in the ground how noisy some teams are. I mean, Eastleigh, mind you, on the stream you could pick that up as well. In the away game. Eastleigh were the chopsiest team that you could imagine. I mean, they really were. In fact, that's why striking in a way, Solihull got Kyle Storer. Kyle Storer knows how to stalk a referee to distraction. It didn't work on Saturday, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, you really can see people pressuring refs and hassling them. You see referees making, again, refer back to that Man City game when the referee erroneously gave a penalty to PSG for handball. It really looked like he wasn't giving it. There was a lot of screaming, and then he suddenly gave it. Now, it could have been the linesman's feeding something to him, to be fair. Might be the reason for the delay, to be fair to him. It did look like the players appealed and got it on appeal, sort of thing. But, well, you're saying about referees. Ironically, I would argue that at Maidenhead, we maybe should have had 2 penalties and didn't get them.
Yeah, so it sort of balanced itself out throughout the course of the season, really, doesn't it? So, well, we mentioned the Maidenhead game. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe not the first half, though. I mean, the wind was the cause of was the determining factor in that match, wasn't it, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And I thought first 10 minutes we looked pretty sharp.
Yeah.
I thought, oh look, we're looking quite sharp here.
Mm.
And then I remember, I don't know what time their first goal went in, but I went up to get myself a drink from the fridge. I come back and I heard my brother make a wild noise, and I looked, and this guy shot from the halfway line.
Yeah,
it was an incredible goal, wasn't it?
It was fantastic, and I've got to say, I mean, it looks bad for Leighton, but is his position that wrong? Really, the ball's in the centre circle in their half of the pitch. I've got to. I mean, I thought it was utter genius, because when you look at it, he doesn't like go forwards and have a look up and suddenly think, "Oh, is this on?" The moment when he first touches the ball, I think he's got it in his mind. He just takes the touch to clear it out from his feet, and then he hits it. He's decided when the ball's coming towards him, I'm going to try this.
The wind helped. The wind definitely helped, because you could tell the trajectory of the ball. If there was no wind, it might have dipped down a little bit more for Leighton to maybe get a hand on it. But I thought, wow, what an excellent goal. And fair play to him for attempting that. But that was just a crazy moment. I thought, oh no, and I thought both their goals in the first half were pretty crazy, weren't they?
Oh, the second goal is awful. You know, like I said, I think the first is one of those that looks bad, but I don't know, in reality, is it anything more than genius?
Yeah,
because
could be National League goal of season. That could,
and he's using like you say, he's taken into account it's windy, and this sort of thing is on. I would also say, all right, then, if people are going to say is Leighton too far off his line, well, let's look at where the defensive line is. Yeah. Because he can't leave a huge gap between him and the defensive line. We'll let more than one goal in a season if the keeper's too deep, and you can just pass him behind our defenders and go one-on-one without the keeper coming out to collect. How many times do you see keepers coming out to the edge of the area, just beating up players or someone to the ball and smacking it in the seats? Well, all those would be one-on-ones if the keeper stands deeper. Or your defence goes deeper, and then teams have got more room to pass it around in front of them. So I don't think he's necessarily out of position. He's not the tallest goalkeeper. Maybe it doesn't count in his favour. If he's Andy Coughlin, 6'5", he maybe stretches and gets a hand on that. But he's a great keeper, so that's life, isn't it? I don't think he was that at fault. The second goal was shocking. The second goal was awful. It really was.
It sort of French should have cleared better, shouldn't he? Really? Do you think the wind played a part in that goal as well?
I don't know. I mean, for me, the issue, the first big issue is that Conley gets the ball in the edge of his own area and runs to the edge of our area without anyone challenging him. Somebody kick him. Somebody, and I must say, maybe we should talk later about how Keats rotated the team. And I thought it was justifiable what he did. But having said that, I expected him to rest Harris, actually. But nonetheless, I think a midfield of Harris in it is more likely to stop. You can't get through the middle of us so easily when Jay Harris is there. And somebody needs to have a tackle him or foul him. You can't let a player run that far without a challenge. And then, like you say, French has miscued it. And I'm not inclined to blame the wind on that. I think he's just... The ball's come. It's a poor pass by Conley, and I like French, but for some reason, on his weaker foot, he's just took a wild swing at it and sliced it up in the air.
And that's the thing. I think we shouldn't get on French's back too much. I think there's a lot of fans on Twitter getting on his back. I think you got to remember he's only 22 himself, and he's playing with the maturity of a player far beyond his age, isn't he? So I think we're all due. We can all make mistakes, especially on a football pitch, especially in those conditions. So, it was a poor goal to concede. And going into the second half, 2 downs, it wasn't good, was it?
Well, we're quite lucky to be 2 down as well. They had other chances as well. That one was out cleared under the bar just after that goal. Yeah, I would say that French as well. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. He made a mistake. We make mistakes. We're human. You don't crucify him over that. All players will make mistakes. But it wasn't his mistake at first. The whole team unit is responsible for letting Conley get that far. And then after he sliced it, all right, that's not great. Pearson had stepped out because he was trying to do something about Conley, but the pass took him out of the equation. And then the rest of the defence stood there when the ball was scooped up in the air. And it wasn't Leighton's to come for. Leighton couldn't come for that. The other defenders really needed to be putting bodies on the line. And instead we didn't. And you've got the centre of our penalty area, the place that should be guarded the most, where one Maidenhead player can take a wild swing at a volley and miss the ball completely, and Conley can still alive on it and slam it in. I mean, there shouldn't be... I'm speaking as an ex-goalkeeper here. I mean, you want to push a shot away sideways if you can. You can't always.
Yeah.
But if you push a shot back into the goal mouth, you expect your defenders to be switched on and getting there first. Well, there you are, right in the middle of the box. The ball's floating in the air, so it's not as if it's suddenly arrived there. There's no one there. And I'd say Pearson's right, I think, to step out and try and do something. Nobody's covered him. And they just stood and looked. It's horrible. I'm going to banish that from my mind now, sorry. Yeah, second half, so much better, isn't it? I mean, straight away, we'll be the wind behind us, we're getting at them. We immediately have Jordan Davis's penalty shouts, which looked like a penalty to me.
Yeah, it was a penalty to me. Yeah. I don't know whether I was being... the stream was wasn't the highest of quality. I'm not bashing Maidenhead for that. Everyone's got to work with what they've got to work with. But I thought that was a penalty. I didn't really see any contact with the ball, really. So...
Well, there's two coming out of the side. And one of them... I mean, I've... in doing the highlights, got a slightly better resolution version, which I still, when I pulled in, wasn't great, but I could see it a bit better. Two players come in, one from either side. One, I think, does maybe nick the ball. The other one's they both gone across Davis, and the other one has caught his leg. Massey's caught his leg. It's a penalty. We're very unlucky, and I think if he got one back straight away, then wow. I think that halfway line goal was a punch in the guts for us that we took 25 minutes to recover from. If they'd let a goal in then straight away, when we were up for it, we could have won that game then, I think. Yeah, I think so too. I remember saying to my brother while we were watching, I think we're going to win this now. Yeah. And when we walked out, I think we looked like we looked the better side. And the one thing I'm not happy that we got a draw, but in all credit to Maidenhead, I thought they had a good game. I thought they played some nice football at times as well. So I thought that Conley looked like an excellent player. So yeah, I'm not going to bash their performance because you got to remember, Maidenhead United's not a glamorous name, but these guys come to win too, don't they? Yeah. I just still got a chance to the playoffs outside.
Exactly. And I think a lot of Wrexham fans can forget that at times that we are in the same league as these teams, aren't we? And these teams are still good teams, even though they don't have the glamorous names. Anyway,
I'm sorry. I've always got a bit of a soft spot for Maidenhead in a way because. They came up, 3 seasons ago, and they've pretty much kept the same basis of their side. And I quite like that. And there's quite a few of their players I like. I mean, Conley, you're right, has stood out. He's always been a good sort of boss in the middle of midfield. The strikers are quite lively. Horsey and Coley are quite lively. And they've got some nice players, I think. The centre-back Massey is strong. I've got a lot of time for Maidenhead, actually, although there are two negatives against them. One of which is that they didn't really play ball with our media team on Monday, which was rather poor, which meant I had to commentate out in the front room again. And secondly, do you realise what is actually on the corner of their pitch? It's the corner on the right-hand side of the camera, so you couldn't get to see it, but it's just there on the corner of the pitch. Theresa May's constituency office.
Right.
Football and politics shouldn't mix, people. Unless I wanted to. But we did come back well, didn't we? We made chances.
Yeah.
We missed chances. Jordan got that nice header in again.
Again, he loves a headed goal, doesn't he?
Yeah. We have been very good set pieces this year, haven't we?
Yeah. Who put the ball in again? Was it Luke Young? Yeah. And whether it be Young or Record, we're dangerous from either side, aren't we, as well? So it's been really nice to watch.
And I really enjoy, it is good preparation. We've scored a few goals and made a hell of a lot more chances from that move of a player leaving the near post to touch it on. Davis has scored twice from them. Jay Harris was doing that role at the start of the season, and he was causing all sorts of problems with his little flick-ons. We've got good delivery and good ideas, good moves, set moves from corners, and I like it. And sadly, though, Jordan, who I thought had an excellent second half, missed that fantastic chance, didn't he, when Dior Angus and Rutherford combined and teed him up. And it was looking at it again, it's a great block on the line by Parry, but he probably should have scored.
Yeah, he probably should have, and But again, he's also scored some crazy ones this season as well. We can't knock him too much for that. And then Sang come off, didn't he? And no, the switch for Sang and Dior was what cemented our draw, really. And I think Sang had a good game. I thought he looked lively and he looked really up for it, didn't he? To be fair to him. So credit to him.
He's got something about him, Sang, hasn't he? We've been saying that, haven't we? Just when he's coming on for a couple of minutes, you can see he's got something. He set up Omotayo for his goal at Woking really nicely. And he works very hard. He's very energetic. He covers a lot of ground and he holds the ball up pretty well. And he was getting a couple of good crosses in as well. He reminds me a bit of when Andy Morrell first came to Wrexham, because obviously everyone thinks about that promotion season and then him coming back and being excellent in the National League. But when he first came to Wrexham, he was already like 24, 25. He'd not had a professional club until then. So he was a late starter. And in the early years, until he started scoring in the Welsh Premier Cup, he was exceptionally hard-working and didn't score many goals and never got a proper long run in the team because of that. But you could, you liked seeing him playing because he would chase anything and everything and keep going for 90 minutes. And Sang reminded me of that a little bit. He wasn't that threatening on goal, although he nearly scored from Records' free kick in the second half, that header.
Yeah.
But his touch for Jordan Davis, by the way, for that penalty shout, you look back on that, it's beautiful little dink, like Dennis Bergkamp, that kills the ball as he jabs it down like a snooker player. Stuns it in front of Dave. Beautiful little touch. He's got something about him. He could develop him.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, how old is he?
I think he's 22. I think.
So it's still young, isn't it? It's still early on in his career. Here's my question to you: against Yeovil on Saturday, do you start him and Dior up front together?
That is a hell of a question. I'm just checking his age. I put Chris Snag, so that might not be perfect. Yeah, he's not come up. I knew there was a snag in doing that. Ba-bunch. Thank you very much. I'm here all week. No, 20. I can't count. I can't count under pressure. Oh, I could count under pressure. 21.
Yeah.
He's 22 in June. Do you start them together?
Omotayo looked a bit laggy, didn't he? I thought on Monday.
He looked shattered at the end, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, the 2 games in 3 days again. I mean, this is the point you say about rotation. I know that they've been looking to rest Angus for a while, but haven't been able to because of so many injuries. And then 2 games in 3 days, I suspected he'd be on the bench. So you might be that Omotayo. Although, of course, it's a different type of attack then. I mean, quite a bit went on to Sang's head and he didn't get anywhere. I mean, to be fair, it was Manny Parry picking him up and he's a mountain. Not many strikers, apart from proper target men, will beat him in the air. So we won't have much in the air going forwards. I think he'll pick Omotayo. But I see the logic of Sang and Angus. Sangus. There you go. It writes itself.
Or maybe you start Ponticelli and Dior Angus if Ponticelli's fit again.
Yeah.
Because they looked quite threatening against Notts County for the first few minutes, didn't they?
They did.
So maybe we have scope to change things. I'm not saying Gold Omotayo's not done a fantastic job, but he did look tired, and he's just come from not playing football for a while to playing nearly 2 games a week. We got to have some sort of rotation as well, haven't we, for all our players? Yeah,
Angus will start, like you say, and of course he got that nice equaliser. It's interesting, isn't it? He likes doing that, doesn't he? When he gets goal side of a defender, he cuts across him. That's how he won the penalty against Solihull. And when you look at that goal, the right back Shackelford actually does get a toe to it when Davis puts it through. Angus tries to go across him and Shackelford gets a toe to it, and Angus does really well, shows his pace that he can sort of do a quick arc and still get onto the ball first and score. But he's I'm pleased to see that, 6 goals, decent return considering when he came, not so long ago. I think, like we were saying about the changes as well, I understand why Angus is rested. I think they wanted him to have a rest, and Sang did a decent job in his place. So you can't blame him for the first half performance. He was probably our best player in the first half, to be frank. And then Record coming back for Green, although Green did well. I think you would want Record back in because he's a key player. Harris being rested. Well, like I said, I thought it would happen. He took a couple of very heavy knocks against Solihull, and I thought, game again 2 days later, might be wise to let him have a bit of recovery time. And also that midfield with Rutherford rather than Harris is what, drove us to those 2 4-0 away wins. So again, that's a good counter-attacking midfield, isn't it? They're all quick. They all want to get forwards. And, so it made logical sense that was a game where you could rest Harris and bring Rutherford, who was unlucky to be dropped, back in. And then French for Hall Johnson again, I think makes sense in that it looks, I assume, because I don't think there's been anything official said, Hall Johnson maybe just carrying something.
Yeah.
Seems to get to easily play 2 games in a week, never mind 2 in 3 days. So French coming in, he's done well in the away games, hasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the feeling I got. I think I'd rather keep Reece Hall Johnson for the home fixtures. For the home fixture on Saturday, rather than playing him twice in the bounce. I even though I know Tyler French didn't have the best game on Monday, I still think he can be equally as good at times because he's a completely different sort of style of right wing back. So I think the changes made sense because 2 games in 3 days is a hell of a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's the first bad game he's had for us.
Yeah.
And even then, he tried to impersonate Reece Hall Johnson because I wasn't, just as I didn't spot the Dagenham link, but I certainly spotted the Weymouth link in this game. And of course, Hall Johnson scored with a cross to win it. And Tyler French, he forced to save from the goalie with a cross. And then he hit the bar with a cross as well. So he was a good impersonation in that sense.
Exactly. So let's say, in a nutshell, what's your thoughts on this game?
I don't know. Like I said, we should have won it. And we should have lost it. So I guess a draw's fair enough. I don't know. I feel a bit dissatisfied with that. I feel in the second half we could have won it. And when you look back at all the chances we had, we really had a chance to win that game. But, okay, we didn't. We accept it. We move on. And the fact is, that's a decent point away from home against a side that still hopes to get in the playoffs. So, yeah, I'm satisfied, I guess. Just about.
You know what? I'm reasonably happy. And I wouldn't usually be happy, but if we look at, the older shot game where we lost 3-0 earlier on in the season and games like that, we could have, and, the Wealdstone game away where we lost 4-3 or 4-3 in the end. Our side could have crumbled in the second half. And we didn't. We come back and we give them a good game. We give them more than a good game. We probably should have won. So, we're not losing these sorts of games anymore. And I'd happily take a draw from that. And I thought Maidenhead played well themselves. So, I was reasonably happy with that result.
I mean, maybe to put it in context, we're now beaten in 5 again. We seem to be doing well at putting in 2021. We've been doing well stringing together these unbeaten little runs. We're unbeaten in 5. We won 3 of our last 5. We're unbeaten in 6 away from home, and we've won 3 of our last 6 away from home. Now, I think whichever way you cut it, that is at the very least playoff form. So, it's sound. I'll take it. I feel a bit weird about the game, but then, like I said, the 2 halves are so different. I guess you're always going to feel weird about it. We could have been 4-0 down at half time, and we could have scored 4 in the second half. So, it was what it was, I think.
Yeah, and as long as we stay in and around the playoffs area, that's where we want to be at the end of the season. Being in the playoffs is a goal, because then you're only a few games away from getting promoted. And we can just build on from next season. So I'm reasonable. I'm not like dancing happy, but going from 2-0 down to pulling it back and making it look like we could have nearly won the game, reasonably happy with that.
Exactly. Well, let's move on then, because next we're going to hear from Mark Wilson. Mark Wilson, a player who was in his season at Wrexham, took part in a playoff race, although it was a playoff race to try and get into the playoffs of League One. And he was a real quality midfielder on loan from Man United, a lovely fella, an intelligent speaker about the game as well, who had an absolutely unbelievable debut at Burnley. And so, like I said, this has been used, a short version, this has been used on the live stream of the Solihull Moors game, but the full interview is great. So don't waste your time listening to me any longer. Here's the man himself, Mark Wilson.
I'm Luke Young, and you're listening to the Dragonheart radio show.
Oh, well, firstly, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I massively appreciate it. You came to us, of course, on loan from Man United when we were pushing for promotion, but I think there's only one real place I can start here. As debuts go, even being at Old Trafford under Alex Ferguson couldn't prepare you for what happened at Burnley, I don't think, could it?
You know what? It was entertaining from beginning to end, Mark. I remember Brian Carey picking me up, and the gaffer, Brian, he said, look, jump in the car with the lads. You don't need to come all the way to Wrexham to then drive back to Burnley. And I remember us getting stuck in traffic. And, you know, I'm thinking, oh, my God, you know, first opportunity in league football, and we're going to be late. And we actually got there, I think 40 minutes before kickoff, 30 or 40 minutes. So I'm walking and I'm like, boss, I'm sorry. He's like, Mark, don't worry. Brian had this calming presence. He said, Mark, there's your kit. Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. Don't sweat it. Get ready, go out, go warm up. And he just put me at ease immediately. And yeah, then what ensued was obviously I started on the bench, and we had our keeper sent off, and Gaz Owen, who I actually reconnected with, you know, a while back, decided he wanted to be a goalkeeper, and what a job he did! Yeah. Incredible. So all 5'8" of him, I think, did an incredible job, and you know, I came on, scored the winner, scored the winning goal, and celebrated with the fans, and that was my first real professional football celebration, you know. So running up to the fans and seeing them up there, and I had my mum and dad there, my uncle there. It was a really special moment for me, and probably one that, well, I know was the catalyst for a 17-year career in the game.
And remarkable. I mean, it was 1-1. It was only like 34 minutes in. I sounded like I was just being encyclopedic. I got a spreadsheet in front of me that told me that. Sorry, I'm not taking the credit for that. You've still got another 56 minutes to go. We've got no keeper. We've got, I've got to say, not the tallest midfielder in goal. And Burnley's intimidating. I mean, you know, to come out like that, to defend a non-specialist keeper like that is remarkable. And then for you to get up the other end and actually score and get the win out of it, I mean, it's a remarkable way, like you say, to almost start a professional career in a way.
Yeah, great memories, and the strangest of games, but, you know, baptism of fire almost. But it was, yeah, what an incredible start to my time with Wrexham, and just loved every second of being at the club.
You were rewarded in the next match, amazingly, by being left on the bench and not coming on, which I thought.
I reminded Brian of that when I saw him again at Doncaster, actually. Yeah. Why did he bench after this? No, he had a plan for me. He clearly had a plan for me.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, because basically every game you were fit for after that, you started. And, you know, you made a big impact. Now, I mean, firstly, coming on loan from United, you know, nowadays, when a lower division team is getting an on-loan signing from a Premier League team, it tends to be a youth player who's probably not going to make it, in all honesty, or who's a long way off making it. But then, you know, you're in the reserves, you're close to the first team, and it showed. I mean, you certainly you looked to have more ability than players in that level had, and it was a huge assistance to us.
You know, it was an opportunity for me to build my confidence playing men's football, first team men's football. And it's funny, playing for United, growing up in those ranks, and I also came through the Lillishall Academy piece. So, you know, playing for your country as well, it gives you that confidence. And I think it's important you carry confidence without ego. So when I came into Wrexham, it wasn't that I had so much to prove. It was just that I wanted to be a part of the team and show what I was capable of. You know, that was my test from the gaffer, from Sir Alex Ferguson, and Brian Flynn, who I played for twice, actually, again at Swansea. He said, look, Mark, I've seen you play a number of times. This was actually before the Burnley game. I just want you to do what you do best, play with freedom. And those words alone just set me up to do the things I did it with the ball. But I've got to say, I was surrounded by some fantastic players. Yeah. You know, Peter Ward, Dave Brammer, and you know, Dean Spinks up front. They all had their own unique skill set, Carl Connolly, I mean, what a player Carl Connolly was. Big Bry Carey at the back, and we just had this great blend and all kind of knew what our strengths were, and really complemented each other and put some good performances together.
Well, yeah, I mean, you certainly did. I mean, that was a side that the previous year got to the last stage of the FA Cup, and there'd been intelligent additions like yourself added to it, and we were pushing for promotion. Your arrival coincided with us stopping a little losing streak and going on a winning streak, and we're climbing up higher and higher up the table. Got as high as third, in fact. We beat Wickham and got third, and at that point you're thinking, well, we get an automatic promotion spot.
Yeah, we were looking at that. We'd found a rhythm, and there was one name I missed out there who I love playing with, Gaz Owen, great midfielder, and we firmly believed we could take on anybody in that league and beat them, and we grew in confidence. I remember us conceding some goals in games we should have won. For sure. I think, was it the Wickham game where we tie 2-2 with Wickham, and then again
Brentford, I think that was
with Brentford. That was it. We beat Wickham, and York City. I remember us going a goal up and being comfortable.
Yeah.
And then we may have tied that game as well, but
lost it at home. Yeah, you scored.
At home, that was it.
Yeah.
Your memory's better than mine, Mark. And
I've got a spreadsheet in front of me, like I said. I'll pretend I remember it all, but I don't.
But there were games we should have really won and secured an automatic spot, and we didn't. But it was still one hell of a ride. And I know we lost out on the very last day. We went away to Southend, didn't we, and won 3-0.
The 3-1, yeah.
3-1, and Adi Akinbaye, did he score for Bristol Rovers in the dying seconds?
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking, but what a great memory, regardless of all that, to beat Cardiff in the cup final.
Yes, don't worry, because you lost that competition.
There you go. So still a wonderful memory for me.
But certainly, I mean, like you say about missing out on the last day, I mean, so frustrating. The top six were in the playoffs. It's not background. The top six were the playoff places. We finished 8th, but we were equal with 5th on points. We all had 70 points, and we missed out on goal difference, like you say. It's just so cruel to miss out. I remember that Southend game very, very clearly. There was a real sense of, to me, as a pessimist, you turn to the games thinking something will go wrong. There was a real sense of, we will not have a problem with this game. We were always going to beat Southend. You just see it in the way we approached it. The professionalism of the team was fantastic. There was a job to be done, and we did it. I remember the Southend, because they finished bottom and their fans were furious, and I think came on the pitch at the end like to protest.
I remember that, yeah.
But we were terrific, and then waiting to hear the scores coming through and realising, like you said, that we've been pipped so cruelly.
Yeah, it was tough to hear, because again, going down to Southend and putting on a performance like that, I know you can look back and say we'd given away some of the games we should have won, but it just felt like we had that momentum in the game. We're controlling the game. It's almost meant to be. We're going to get in there. We're going to go into the playoffs, and with the team we had, we could beat anybody on our day. So it was a real shame we never got to showcase that in the playoffs.
I would have fancied us in the playoffs because, firstly, as we'd shown the previous season in the Cup, we weren't an easy team to beat, and we were a team that could rise to an occasion. And like you said, we built up some good momentum and self-belief there. Yeah, it was a real shame.
It was.
Yeah. But we did show we're good in cup competitions in the Welsh Premier Cup. I think it was called the Welsh Invitation Cup that year, which was started that year. It was a sort of strange setup, basically born on the FA of Wales, I think, realising that by stopping the Welsh teams getting into Europe, or by not playing the Welsh Cup, they made a mistake, I think, really, to be honest. Right. And you were, you were massive in that competition. You scored against Swansea in the quarterfinals, so we beat them on penalties. Scored in the semi-final against Newtown, and then, surprise, surprise, in the final against Cardiff, you scored again, and we won the cup. I mean, it was a strange sort of tournament. I have a vague, was it that there was no trophy, or the trophy was they turned up on the day with it, I think. And there was suspicion about whether it existed the day before. But it was a strange setup in some ways, but brilliant to win a trophy at the end of it all.
It was, yeah. I remember that night. We had a great night to celebrate, as always. And, we took that competition seriously, and especially having to beat Swansea and then beat Cardiff. No disrespect to Newtown either, that was a tough game. It's knockout competition, and it doesn't matter whatever level you pitch knockout at a professional level. It's highly competitive. You want to win every game, and we, going into the final against Cardiff, it was like playing the FA Cup final. We wanted to win that game. It was a packed house. You want to finish on a high so you can roll into the next season and start off well. And it was an entertaining game. And blessed to have scored in all three games I played in, and especially in the final. But again, I certainly don't. I'm not going to say I don't take all the credit. The credit has to go to the team I was playing in. Again, the players around you help you become who you are. So when I think about the moments of success I had on the field, I don't want to sound cliched or kumbaya, but the team contributes to your individual success. And we had a fantastic team at that point.
Absolutely. The sad thing for me, and something I suppose I was sort of aware of all the way through, was that, I'm surely right in saying this, there was no way we could hold on to you on a long-term basis because you had a future at Old Trafford. And to be fair, people aren't going to turn that possibility down in order to stay with us. I know, so you went back to United naturally, and look to make the impact there. Yeah,
look, I always wondered if I'd ever find my way back to Wrexham, having loved my time there, even later on as I was moving through the leagues. But that was my test from the gaffer, from Ferguson, and it was, if you can go there and perform well, you'll get an opportunity to be a part of the first team squad. And although I only went on to play 10 games in 3 more years at United, which is a terrible games to years ratio, it wasn't easy to remove a Keane, a Scholes, a Nicky Butt at that time. And but I still got to live out my boyhood dream. It was my club. I still love the club today and go back and occasionally do some TV stuff for them. But what a privilege to pull on that jersey and walk out on that field and be around that environment for the time I spent there.
I was going to say, it must be a hell of an experience as a United fan to walk out at a packed Old Trafford. Years ago, I was interviewing the daughter of a player who played for Wrexham at the start of the 20th century, who signed for Aston Villa. And when he walked out, was so astonished by the crowd, he fainted on the pitch. That experience to go out and do that is the opposite, surely, to come out and think, wow, this is it. That must be an astonishing buzz.
It's you're prepared. So I always say, if you stood in the tunnel and you felt unprepared or you didn't belong, you would never be there.
Yeah.
So you stand in a tunnel with an air of confidence, the confidence that the manager's instilled in you, the confidence you have from training every day with the first team and performing well and being around those players and competing and showing that you're capable. So when you do stand in a tunnel for the first time, you've earned it. And my actual debut was the year we won the treble. So it was away in Bromby, and then I was on the bench against Barcelona and got told to warm up after 5 minutes because Nicky Butt went down. So it was squeaky bum time a little in the new camp at that point. But as soon as I got up and kind of ran up and down, I was like, get me on. Yeah. Get me in the mix. I want to play. Nicky recovered and carried on. And phenomenal game, actually, 3-3. But my home debut was something special for me. My mum and dad in the stand. And I remember, standing in the tunnel, and I've got my dream midfield there. It's Scholes, it's, Beckham, it's Giggs, and it's me. Pinch me. But at the time, fully felt that I deserved to be there. And you hear the music playing and hairs on the back of my neck, standing up now still. It's incredible to look back on, and you walk out to that music and fans erupt, and a privilege, Mark. I can only say a privilege, a blessing, and something I'll remember, for the rest of my life.
Amazing. And then after United, of course, I've got to be honest, for years, because you'd made such an impression, I was thinking, like you said earlier, I wonder if he'll make his way back to us. I'd always keep an eye on you and think, yeah, come on. We didn't help ourselves by getting, relegated. No. Probably didn't help much. Just to the point where you think, okay, it could be maybe tempt him. We were actually on a bit of a downward trajectory for a bit. But yes, you did a good job at a few other clubs, didn't you?
There was, yeah, Middlesbrough. I was sold to Middlesbrough for £1.5 million, which was, I look back on at the time, I suppose it was a decent price tag for somebody leaving United. And the issue I had, Mark, was I went to Middlesbrough, and I always say I was a late maturer mentally. Now looking back, now I've had time to self-reflect, and I kind of went into Middlesbrough expecting a first-team place to be automatic. It was the wrong approach, just because I'd come from United and played games in the first team there. It's still a Premier League team full of world-class players, Janino, Gareth Southgate, Hugo Ehiogu, Mark Schwarzer, just, Paul Ince, phenomenal players. And my mentality wasn't quite right. And it shows in the amount of games I played over 5 years. And, I probably arguably didn't fulfill my potential going into that club because I got in my own way. Instead of focusing on the one thing I can control, which is me, I started to point fingers and I'm better than him, or I'm playing better than this person. Why aren't I starting? It's not the right perspective or approach if you want to become a regular first team player. So where I had moments of beating United at the Riverside 3-1 and, playing in good FA Cup games against Chelsea and other games I played that were highlights, it was inconsistent. And my mentality was inconsistent, which represented in a number of games I played. So that's just an honest appraisal and being able to self-reflect on my time at Middlesbrough in particular.
They should have picked you against Wrexham, of course. They were a better shot then. We beat them. A mistake on their part, I would argue. And then you played for like Swansea, Doncaster, a couple of the teams as well. But also went over to the States, which is where you are now.
I did, yeah. I played 2 years in Frisco in Texas for SC Dallas, and it was more me escaping to rekindle, if I'm being honest. It was to come and have a different experience. And I'd always vacationed in the States, so it always intrigued me to come out here and see what the landscape was like football-wise. And I came out here and had 2 good years. So I ended up leaving for family reasons in the end. But the 2 years I had, we actually won the conference, the Western Conference, twice, but got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs twice. And it really dawned on me how this league is for sure set up differently. It's more about momentum leading into the playoffs. And then, are you a knockout team? Are you a tournament team? That's what brings you success in the MLS. So, played with a ton of great Central American, South American players and had a different experience. Didn't, when I looked at the schedule, I get to travel to LA and go to Colorado and go to New York. And then it was like, hang on a minute, these are 3-hour flights and 5-hour flights. And we're flying north to Colorado and playing at Mile High Stadium. So there's altitude. Yeah. It was a whole different dynamic to manage as a player. And also kicking off in 90-degree heat in Texas in the middle of summer also brought its challenges. So a wonderful experience, eye-opening, and one of the reasons why I'm back here now in New Jersey after spending some time in Manhattan.
I mean, I've got to say, going off the point in some senses, that I always feel that, okay, in Britain, there's often a cliched view of soccer in America, which is negative and naive, I think, that viewpoint. But my son and I, about 5 years ago, we went over to New York and Washington with my wife on a holiday. We thought she could come as well, I don't know why I put it like that. And but my son and I went to watch the Red Bulls. Right. And we were very struck by the fact that, far from being the artificial experience that I think in Britain, a lot of traditional people want you to think American soccer is and MLS is, it's quite the opposite. It's an awful lot of fans basing themselves on the positive elements of ultra culture in Europe, and making it their own, if you will. So it doesn't have that unpleasant violence sort of connotation, but it does have that terrific commitment. I remember very clearly, to be honest with you, the Red Bulls ultras It was not long after Osama bin Laden had been assassinated, and they were singing some tremendous football songs about him. I thought, my son and I were bowled over by this, but we loved that, the atmosphere. You know, it felt really authentic and properly fan led, and I think that's something that a lot of people in Britain genuinely, through I would argue prejudice, don't appreciate. And you know, it's a very healthy setup, I think.
It is. I mean, you look at Atlanta; they were packing out the Mercedes-Benz Stadium with 60, 70,000 when under Tata Martino when they won the MLS Cup, and LAFC, the latest Los Angeles club, they pack out the stadium, and it is a really healthy fan environment, and it's a good league. There's some talented players over here. As you can see, there's a lot of young players leaving the MLS to go obviously to Europe and play, but they're doing well. But the standard over here is underestimated, and there are a lot of players that come out here now and think it's going to be easier than what it is. I mean, you look at Wayne Rooney coming out, who did phenomenally well, by the way, but even he complimented the league. He said it's different. It's a different set of logistics, travel-wise. You know, there's some talented players from Central and South America, talented American players, and it is an underestimated league. So it's good to see it grow and develop, and it will continue to do so because it's still quite a young league in terms of history.
And continuing in a way that theme, of course, is that Wrexham have been taken over, well, by a Canadian and an American in a sort of remarkable fairy tale, really. I think is the only way to put it, because they do genuinely seem to just want to put money in and create a positive community club which is sustainable, which is hard to believe, if I'm honest. And you know, I'm struggling to think of another example of a club like that, except for the likes of Blackburn, where a lifelong fan who's rich puts money in. I'll tell you something, just might be interested in your perspective on this, that they have not fallen into that trap of saying the sorts of things that will lead to them being labelled as, oh, they've come over from America but they don't understand football. Because A, they're very intelligent with their social media use, and B, they're incredibly humble. And they've been very quick, A, to listen and to use the correct phraseology, because, as you know, a British person will jump on someone saying soccer, even though I've got to be honest about that. That's the original English words. That the American use of it is more authentic than us saying football. That's a different matter. But also because they are they're smart enough and sincere enough, I think, to say we need to learn, but we're going to have a good experience learning it rather than trying to appear as people telling us what to do with the game. Has it made many waves over on your side, that story? It certainly has, I know, in Canada. I've been speaking to some Canadian players, but
yeah, the US is an interesting place. When you look at the big sports, you've got football, basketball, baseball and hockey. The MLS is getting more coverage. That particular story was probably more social media driven, so it got some airtime there. But football or soccer is it's not spoken about on the street corners. You're more likely to hear about the basketball game last night or the football game last night, or you know, the more prominent sports. It's catching up and may overtake baseball, hockey in terms of fan base at some point, but it's still, like I said, in its growth. So, but what a unique set of circumstances. And I agree, two humble individuals who understand the landscape and they're conscious of their language and the choice of words. And I think it's going to be an absolute success if they continue to build and develop and grow the club and stick with the same mentality and approach and develop the culture they want. I think it's going to be a huge success, and you know, I'm delighted for Wrexham and the fans and the people involved with the club.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Mark, can I just say thank you so much for joining us. I just need to say, sum up the numbers: 16 starts, 1 sub appearance, 7 goals from centre mid. I tell you, you're a class act on the eye, but obviously you delivered as well. Mark, can I just say thank you so much for joining us, and also thank you so much for what you did for the club in your short spell with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Absolute privilege and pleasure to be on with you, and it was a privilege to play for the club.
the other side and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
Oh, Mark Wilson there. Class act, both on and off the pitch. I've got to say, it was a real treat to speak to him. Other people it would be a treat to speak to, though. We asked on Twitter, who would you like, either living or not, to have a pint with and talk about Wrexham? And we had some absolutely fantastic responses. So let's have a little look through. For example, Deja Sonnen, yes, I've worked out the anagram now, said, there are quite a few, but it'd have to be Rob McElhenney currently. That seems like a reasonable call. They're promising to come over to have a pint. And I think, yes, I'm sure a lot of people will probably put that top if they're being realistic.
Well, my girlfriend said she'd like a pint with him. She doesn't know anything about Wrexham FC, so...
You may want to keep an eye on that situation. There are a couple of other ones. It's interesting. The answers tend to fall into a few categories. So another one here about ownership. We heard about Rob McElhenney. Well, here's one of having a little bit of a nip at our other owner, India Autry, saying Ryan Gosling, the wrong Ryan, because Ryan Reynolds is doing too much right now. Wow, that's that's him told.
Yes.
Yeah, keep your eye on the club, mate. How about Timothy Lewis? Here's a beauty, this. I've always fancied a chat with Alex Hamilton about Wrexham FC. Never a pint, though. Yeah. I think it's a lot.
Yeah, because you probably end up chucking the pint over him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think he'd get away with it quite nicely, wouldn't he, by not having a chat to him. There are some beautiful sort of heartfelt messages as well. Andy Pierce, who we know is a tremendous, has this comment. Oh, that's beautiful. Let's say it's definitely my granddad for sentimental reasons. He died when I was 1, a season ticket holder in the Old Mill Road. My dad said Stan would have many a heated debate with someone sitting nearby over such things as who should be at fullback and such. I think we'd have got on well. I think you're right there, Andy. I think that's beautiful. That is.
That's a lovely one. That one.
In fact, we were talking about who we would choose. Maybe that's a point where maybe you should mention what other people you were thinking about.
Yeah, I was thinking, and I didn't know him personally, but I think every Wrexham fan has a moment with this Wrexham fan who sadly passed away, and it was Jacko, the voice of the cop, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
And I don't think the atmosphere has been the same really since he's passed away, and he was such a character. He was the type of guy who could get the crowd going, no matter if we were 2-0 up or 3-0 down. He was brilliant, and I'd love to hear all his fantastic stories about going to watch Wrexham home and away. And I'd also like to tell him about these new owners who are buying the club as well. And I'd love to see his reaction to it.
Oh, so that's a lovely thought, that. The fact that I think naturally, or I was thinking this is about who would you want to listen to over a pint in a way.
Yeah. But
yeah, to actually give him that good news, that amazing news. Oh, that's a brilliant thought. Yeah. And God, he'll have some tales to tell.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's got Jacko tales to tell themselves. I always loved, I remember going back to Bristol Rovers when they played at Bath, and I think it might have been an Easter Monday or something like that. I'm sure it was like a bank holiday game. It was burning hot and there's no roof on the terrace. We lost 4-2. And I always remember Jacko getting getting the whole away end to do that. If you've only got one arm, clap your hands. And it's just wonderful. There were often away games where you would just see these bemused home fans. Oh, at Orient, that was in the 90s, a late game, late in the season, Orient were protesting against their board. And he led the fans, Wrexham fans, in joining the protest. And the protest stopped. But as in protest, they were all chanting, sack the board. But all the Wrexham fans started joining in, sack the board, sack the board, sack the board. And the Orient fans shut up. They were like, what are you doing? Why? It was just bizarre. Oh, I just love that sort of thing. It was fantastic.
My favourite story of his is when, for me, an iconic game that's rarely talking about, is my favourite game of all time, was Wrexham Shrewsbury away. at the last game at their old ground. And I remember when Proctor buried that goal, I remember just the whole place erupting, and I remember turning around and he was climbing up the stands topless. And it was just brilliant. He was such a great character for me. He's a Wrexham legend, Wrexham FC legend, AFC legends, and not just on the pitch. They're the everyday person who goes to watch the games and whoever works the club. So yeah, he's definitely my first pick.
Brilliant that. Here's some more interesting ones as well. Dan the Man says, if you'd asked me this weeks ago, I'd say anyone, because, pubs were shut. You can argue with that. Now, I'd say bootlegger for the laughter. Good call. Remember, everybody, you can sponsor Dragonheart. Just saying. Just saying, if you meet some Starmer, you must have a bit. Intent. Or Rob Evans. Rob being a local lad, he did something lads dream about, playing for the hometown club, and he continues. Rob probably encouraged Jordan Davis and others to do the same. I know things didn't work out for him well, playing wise for Wrexham, but he's a good lad. 100% agree with that. That's a superb call, that, isn't it? I mean, Robbie Evans, Wrexham through and through.
100%. Mark Jones would be another one as well, and he was a local lad to have a pint with. Yeah, that must be an amazing feeling playing for your hometown, especially being Wrexham, and hearing stories of your child, someone fulfilling thousands of Wrexham people's childhood dreams would be amazing to hear.
Well, I mean, as Mark Wilson was saying in that interview about coming on and playing in the midfield with those star Man United midfielders, it's wow, what a sensation to come out on that pitch and actually play with those players. That's a great call. That is absolutely great call. I'm so sorry for Rob. I think if he hadn't had those injuries, and in the time when Dean Keats knew he had a tight budget, I think he probably would have kept Evans myself. That's a cracking call. That. Spirit of 78. Now that's classic players. Well, Spirit of 78. Route 1, spot on. Does what it says in the tin. 2 words. Tommy Bamford. Yes. Yeah. I quite like to talk to a man who scored 200 goals for Wrexham.
Yeah. Yeah. You probably can't remember all of them.
Well,
that
absolutely. Many. Who would be able to? Scoring at a rate essentially of 1 a game. Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, that's good.
And then Peter Howell. Hi, Peter. Here's a nice one. Eddie May. I sometimes think, do people forget Eddie May a touch? Because you have the heroes of the 77-78 season and people like Joey who slightly predated it. But then Eddie May predates that, so he doesn't get that kudos. But he was key when Wrexham got promoted 69-70 and was a massive figure. Peter says, I met him once when I was 12, but was so awestruck and shy, I didn't know what to say to him. Now, though, I'd love to talk to him about his time at Wrexham and his success as a manager at many clubs, including a spell in Zimbabwe.
Wow.
I mean, what a shame that he's no longer around to talk to. A manager, a massive centre-back, a goal-scoring centre-back, a leader, and a massive character. I mean, it really would have been... players. I'm going to throw one of mine in now, if you like.
Yeah.
Because I think that okay, my degree's in history. I'm a historian, I guess, in some small way. I'm currently working on a history of the football club, and I find it fascinating just hearing people talking about not just their stories, but just how football was in a different era. And I would like to do that idea of Eddie May, people from the sort of prehistory of Wrexham. It'd be fascinating to talk to somebody from before we were in the Football League, when football was a very different game. I've spoken to players who would work a shift down the pits and then come and play, or even just players, players from before I remember. So that's one of the things I enjoyed when I've gone around and interviewed people, but I never saw play. I know their name. And I like to just say, I'm almost like just trying to say, what was that bloke like? You know what I mean? What was this player like? I want to know. I want a picture in my head. Of course, if Peter, there is one thing, which is, let's see, I should have done my preparation here. Yeah, it is. Eddie May did write an autobiography on my wall of Wrexham. That's not the last time I'll refer to the wall of Wrexham, by the way. But Eddie May did write an autobiography. So it was published, I think, posthumously by his son, who pulled it all together. But yeah, so at least maybe we could find out a little bit about him from that.
Yeah. I just think that's a really interesting thing to talk to someone who's played football in a completely different area, when the town was completely different area, when technology was a completely different, when everything was completely different, society in general was completely different. It would just be interesting to not just to pet their head about football, but just to pet their head about life in general.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm honest with you, like I said, I'm working on a history of the club. God knows how long it'll take me to do it, because I want to look at that sort of thing. I don't want it to just be a list of football results. That's a boring read. What was Wrexham like at different stages?
Yeah.
And it does fascinate me, that the way that, I think I mentioned this before, Scottish immigration because of the mines. So you've got a lot of Scottish players who play for Wrexham, even though it's miles away from home, because that was a cultural thing that was happening anyway. Scots coming down to mine. It's just so many things, and just how towns were different, how life was different, and how football was like strikingly different. I mean, look at some of those old footage of old matches. It's gripping to look at it and think that's the same game.
Yeah,
look at
and it's absolutely crazy. And I think another set of players who I'd love to have a pint with is any of the Trinidad and Tobago lads.
Oh yeah.
To come from a completely different culture, to fly over and end up in a little town in Wrexham and be local celebrities would be a fantastic talk. Especially, well, I know he wasn't one of the original ones, but Marvin Andrews would be an excellent conversation in the pub, wouldn't he?
Oh gosh, yeah. If he drinks, I'm not totally sure if he drinks.
Yeah, well, we can have a cup of coffee instead.
Exactly. He's got energy enough. Anyway, another autobiography there. It's worth reading. Yeah. I think I said I read that on one day on his debut on the train going to Eastbourne, and all the stories about him playing football on rocks in bare feet and things like that. I mean, he's a heck of a character. That's a great call. That I love that.
I highly suggest, if people aren't at the moment, check out his Twitter on a Friday. He's always singing a song, and he's always happy, and it will make you laugh, guaranteed.
Oh man, that's a good call, good take. I'll throw in one more from me then, but then I there's a beauty to end on that is fascinating, and lets me use my wall of Wrexham again. Steve Fox. When I was a kid, Wrexham by Steve Fox, and he was your classic sort of erratic winger. He's always trying to do things. Sometimes it wouldn't come off. Sometimes they did. In doing this research afterwards, I found out, which I didn't know at the time because I was a kid, he was a heck of a character off the pitch. A real character. There are some crazy, daft stories about him. But he was a real exciting player. He was quick. He would dribble. He would shoot from distance. And he was he and David Giles, who we bought as well as a Welsh international, were sort of brought in when Mickey Thomas left as sort of wide attacking players who could sort of do similar job. And they were thick as thieves off the pitch. But yeah, Fox was a very exciting sort of quixotic character. And although, I remember him from good football moments, and there's one iconic picture of Fox standing on the cop, celebrated a goal on the fence, and the fences with a packed cop and him like raising his fist. In some ways, the thing I remember most was him. And I went to see Wrexham play on a Saturday morning in a reserve game against Altrincham. Wrexham reserves against Altrincham first team. The referee was terrible. Fox had been dropped to the reserves and obviously was not happy. And the referee kept making decisions Fox didn't like. And in the end, Fox just turned down and drilled the ball into his stomach from 10 yards away. It was definitely deliberate. And the ref didn't send him off.
Oh,
I think the ref was a bit scared by then, as Fox was like following him around, grumbling at him all the time. He was so annoyed that he'd been dropped to the reserves, and then this idiot was refereeing him. And he just smashed it into his stomach. And the referee was just like, oh, don't do that again, and walked away. Because he was a bit scared of what might happen. Well, Steve Fox is the right character. Really enjoyed watching them.
Oh, that would be an excellent choice.
Oh, I'll tell you. There's a great story about him with our outboard motor as well. I'll tell you that after we finish broadcasting. Sorry. If we get enough sponsorship money, then I'll tell it next week. But that could work. This is a beauty that I'd left to last. Stephen Rubio, who clearly is a fan from America, as a cracking call. Pete Davis, because the book he wrote for us Americans in 1994 introduced me to Wrexham. And back to the wall of Wrexham we go. This incredible sort of forgotten book. Now, I will say as well, I mean, people like Pete Jones and Gareth Davis, who wrote histories or historical research in the club, you know, they are wonderful to talk to because they could tell you so many stories. But this is a remarkable book, published incredibly for the 1994 World Cup, when it was assumed that Americans knew nothing about football. And so Pete Davis, who wrote the classic All Cried Out book about the 1990 World Cup and England's run to the semi-finals, which is one of the great classic books. In fact, I just thought, why haven't I got it ready to show you? Because it's here somewhere. He basically explains football to imaginary Americans who he assumes know nothing about football. So part of it is like a sort of guide to how football works. But the thing he uses to illustrate it is a Wrexham season. And wonderfully, it's the season we go up in 1992-93. I just picked up a random page.
Wow.
And there we are. He explains the 4-4-2 formation with Wrexham's promotion team and how they lined up and what they were doing. And so but it's not, it's not just basic. There's lots of interesting, he does actually genuinely follow the Wrexham team and as a journalist, and there's really interesting interviews with players. I remember Humes and Pedgick being very sort of interesting in it. It's a cracking book. I don't know how available it still is, but it is one. Oh, here's him explaining You'll Never Walk Alone. So it's a wonderful sort of wide spread of trying to show people what football culture is, but the thread running all the way through it is our promotion season. And it gives you, I would argue, a better insight into Wrexham's promotion season than anywhere else. It's a really good read.
That's really cool, to be fair.
Fantastic choice by Steve, that. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Really, spot on. I'd forgotten all about that. And yeah, it's a beauty.
That is brilliant. And now the second question I lead to you. What beer would you pick?
Ooh. Oh, you. Well, he turns away, hoping that I can avoid the question. I really love Belgian beer.
Yeah.
And if any of the Belgian breweries want to sponsor us, sorry, no, I've got to stop doing that. I'm getting cheapened now, aren't I? I really love Belgian beer, so I think a nice saison, a Belgian saison maybe, or I think I'd probably plump for something like that. I do like a good Gers, as you're aware, as well.
Yes.
And the Boone's Mariage Parfait. That's the good stuff. But in general,
nice.
Belgian beer or Trappist beers are nice.
Yeah.
In general, anything Belgian, I'm going to be quite happy with, except possibly Fellaini, because he was a bit too clumsy for my liking, a bit too obvious for my liking, for my palate. What would you have?
Of course, I like my Belgian and German beers as well, but maybe if they want to sponsor us, a pint of bootlegger.
Well, there you go. This is eventually this will work.
If we just keep on saying them out and about, then maybe one day.
Definitely. The trouble is, of course, we would give the money to the media team, so it would only be benefiting Wrexham Football Club, not us. Oh, we've not thought this through, have we?
No, we haven't.
Man. Fancy starting a behind a paywall League of Wales podcast. It'll mostly be about Max Cleworth and Kate Bickerstaff.
Yeah, we can just talk about them all week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll talk numbers afterwards. Well, I reckon a happy chat about beer is just about the best way to finish a podcast about football. So, Che, again, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to catch up with you.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed talking about the blackout, and I've really enjoyed talking about the who he'd like his pint with. Then really good fun.
Yeah, cracking that, isn't it? Yeah, brilliant ideas. So fantastic. And so to end the show, you'd want to have a pint with this guy, surely. You couldn't say no. It's time for Jay Harris and his Hollywood send-off.
This is Jay Harris, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio.
Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.